All right, this is our last video for chapter 12, so welcome to the end of the chapter. We talked about the different immune system cells and how they work. Now we're going to talk about organ transplants, rejections due to our immune system not accepting certain tissues. We'll talk about some disorders of the immune system, specifically allergies and autoimmune diseases. And the last slide I think we'll talk about is how or when the organ system actually develops, the lymphatic vessels start to develop. So four types of different grafts that we can actually use are autografts, where we're taking tissue from one region of our own body to another region of our own body. This is usually a relatively safe mechanism, especially if say you are needing skin for because you have a burn on your arm, and so they're going to transfer some skin from your leg and put it on your arm. That would be an example. An isograft is a graft where you take tissue from somebody who is genetically identical. So this only works if you have an identical twin. Allografts are tissues taken from a person that is not an identical twin. So this is the most common type of graft when someone donates an organ. So when I die, I say I want to donate my kidneys. And so somebody who needs a kidney can then take one of my kidneys and survive. That would be an allograft. And then we have xenografts, tissue taken from a different animal species. So an example of a xenograft would be tissue taken, say, from certain animals to cover up burns. It may not successfully graft, like they may not take that tissue and actually use it and form new cells, but it can still be used as a mechanism to protect that environment. On burn patients, they use certain fish scales as the tissue to cover the burn, and this actually is very beneficial. It keeps that burn from getting infected, and then their own skin can grow at some point. There we go. Whenever you have an organ transplant, you have to make sure that not only are you getting the closest match in the tissues, but you're also getting a close blood group matching. So if I were to donate a kidney to someone else, that someone else would have to have the same blood type as me. So an example, I have type AB positive blood. If I want to donate to somebody, they would have to have AB positive blood as well. Now, if someone donated a kidney to me and say they only had type A positive blood, I could take that kidney, but it would be better if I got someone who had AB positive blood and was donating a kidney, because the closer the match, the more likely your body won't reject. So when you have an organ transplant, you always are going to follow that by using immunosuppressive drugs. And the problem with that is whenever you use an immunosuppressant, you're more prone to infection because you're suppressing your immune system. So that's a really scary thing to do. So at that point, while you're going through immunosuppressive therapy, you would also have to stay away from many, many different individuals, since you are more likely to get sick. So what are some disorders associated with the immune system? The most common are allergies, which many people suffer from, autoimmune diseases, and immunodeficiency diseases. So first we'll talk about allergies, and I just put this on here. Probably most of you have seen this. It's amazing. So this is pollen coming off a tree, so you can see it. Like, oh, that person is having a bad day if they have pollen allergies, which I do. So allergies occur when your immune system has a seriously strong response to something that should not be considered harmful, like pollen would be an example. And some allergies can be very severe. So example, there we go. An immediate acute hypersensitivity is a severe response to some allergen. So one example is hives. If you've ever had hives, they're large bumps that form all over your body in response to some type of an allergy. Anaphylaxis, it occurs when your body actually starts to shut down to keep that potential pathogen, which it's not really a pathogen, that allergen, from attacking your organs. So you no longer are breathing. Your heart is going to not pump the blood around. Those are examples of what happens in anaphylactic shock. Delayed hypersensitivities are hypersensitivities that you see a few days after contact. So poison ivy is a very common delayed hypersensitivity. You come in contact with it in the woods on a hike, you may not even realize it, and then 2 days later your face is blown up or your arm is swelled and itchy because you touched the poison ivy. So how does this work? We'll look at the stages of the allergen. So it starts with some allergen coming into the body, and our immune system responds improperly. So immediately plasma cells recognize this allergen and they start secreting tons and tons of IgE antibodies. These IgE antibodies attach to mast cells. Mast cells and basophil cells are the cells that release histamines and heparins in response to different allergic reactions. So these IgEs attach to these mast cells and basophil cells, and then the allergen comes in contact with the antibodies that are attached to these mast or basophil cells, which activates the release of the histamines and heparins. So now we're releasing tons of histamines, which cause the entire inflammatory response, and heparins increase leakiness of your blood vessels. So histamine and heparins together cause fluids to move into or move from the capillaries into the tissues, which causes swelling. We release a lot of mucus to help fight off the pathogen. We increase inflammatory response, and we can constrict bronchioles. So if you are allergic to, say, pollen, which I showed, then that can actually cause you to have problems with breathing. And if you have asthma, then that would be the allergen, the pollen allergen can actually activate the asthma, which is a really big problem. All right. An autoimmune disease then is a disease where your immune system cells did not become immunocompetent and learn to be self-tolerant. They may be able to recognize a pathogen, but they also recognize your own cells and think they're pathogens. So they attack your self cells. So examples of autoimmune diseases that you may have heard of are rheumatoid arthritis, myasthenia gravis. So this one attacks your bones and joints. Myasthenia gravis affects skeletal muscle. Multiple sclerosis at myasthenia gravis affects skeletal muscle because it affects the nerves, because it tells the nerves not to work as effectively. Multiple sclerosis affects the nervous system. It tells your immune system that the myelin sheath around your brain and spinal cord is not self. Graves' disease, the immune system attacks the thyroid gland, thinking that the thyroid gland is a non-self. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease where the T cells actually attack pancreatic beta cells, killing off those cells, resulting in deficient insulin production. Lupus is an autoimmune disease in which your immune system attacks connective tissues. It can affect the kidneys, heart, lungs. It can affect skin, so it affects all kinds of regions of the body. Glomerulonephritis. There you go. Glomerulonephritis is an autoimmune disease in which the immune system attacks the kidneys. And the last thing then is the immunodeficiency. So immunodeficiencies are diseases that are acquired either due to your genes or because of a virus that got into your system. So the two major immunodeficiency diseases that we talk about, SCID, severe combined immunodeficiency disease, is a disease in which you are born without the ability to produce an immune system, often associated with a protein called RAG that doesn't function properly. So it's a genetic disorder. And in the case of this disease, the children often have to live in a plastic bubble away from other individuals so they don't get sick. And then AIDS is a disease that actually is caused by a virus, the HIV virus. HIV virus attacks helper T cells, and if you remember, helper T cells are what like work or get the entire immune system and nonspecific defenses to work. So if you take out that general from the army, then the entire immune system no longer functions. And so that's how HIV works. And the very last thing we'll talk about is development. So we start producing a lymphatic system by about 5 weeks. The first organs to be formed are your thymus and your spleen. Other lymphatic organs are not developed very well until we are born. And then once we are born, the immune system and the organs get fully developed. The immune response starts to develop as we come in contact with pathogens. So little infants are much more prone to infections when they are young because they have to build up their immune system, which is why that thymus has to be so large. And so at this point, you should be able to answer these questions. What are some different grafts that are used for transplanting? What is an allergy? What is an autoimmune disease? Name some different autoimmune diseases. What is HIV? And what is severe combined immunodeficiency disease? I am done. We are done with this chapter, so I'm going to post this lecture, pull it through Edpuzzle, and then you can watch the videos. Have a great day. Bye.